Hello everyone, I'm back with another Tabletop Psychology, and today I'm going to be talking about the psychology behind making choices within your war games. So we could surmise that tabletop gaming is a series of choices, thousands of small choices, whether you move your guy here, whether you choose to shoot this or hack that, what weapon I should use in this profile is made up of many choices. And I'm going to be talking about some of the behavioural psychology behind this choice-making decision and how we come to those decisions. So the first major part is called maximising. It seems quite an obvious choice, but there are some intricate details to it. So maximising is where you would essentially want to get the biggest reward out of making that choice. So for example, I could choose to shoot a lieutenant and put you into loss of lieutenant and retreat, or I could choose to maybe just shoot a grunt who won't really have that much influence on the game. So maximising our reward is a massive part of how we make our decisions and choices. You're also going to be maximising these opportunities where you're more likely to succeed. So for example, I might be shooting someone with a combi rifle who's at a -6 with one of my snipers who's in a +3 range, therefore maximising the likelihood that I'm going to get the positive result that I want. Essentially what this boils down to is the mathematical rate of success. Now, not everyone works out this likelihood of success as they're playing the game. Often you'll find that someone will make a decision and then work out the odds afterwards. So this comes with skill and over time sort of learning the nuances of the rules and sort of getting better at judging range. And it's a real mark of a good player if you can do this. People only tend to make choices that are very sort of deterministic and simple. It's only when you get to really complex scenarios or unfamiliar scenarios that people take time to physically work out maximising that ability. And eventually this becomes assimilated and you learn how to do this for this scenario. It's very much like when you're playing a video game and you enter a boss that you've never played before and you keep dying at a certain point, and then suddenly you learn, well, if I jump over this pit, I avoid this attack and then I can beat it. So that's how we do it. So then we have matching law. Now, matching is very similar to maximising in the sense that you're looking for getting the biggest reward. However, it's looking at different scenarios where there are always rewards and working out kind of what best suits it. So an example of this might be how you would have a scenario where you have a hacker with a high willpower over another hacker with a lower willpower. Now obviously you're going to take the higher one, but there's still a reward. Now matching would come into play where perhaps you might be able to have multiple lower whip hackers for a lower points cost or the same points cost as one hacker for with a bigger willpower for more points. So it's really about determining the opportunities for rewards, and some may or may not be more desirable than the others. Other sort of ways of decision making that aren't so great are over and under matching. So matching, when it first came through in behavioural psychology, was hailed as a really big breakthrough to be able to mathematically look at behaviour in quite a reductionist way. It's sort of akin to how equations sort of explain elemental particles in physics. It's a really big leap forward. Now, the only problem is that being humans, and they also apply this to animals, we don't go on a straight line of reward is bigger, so we just continue to make that decision. We make decisions left, right, and centre that don't always match up, and there's reasoning behind this. So some of this is over and under matching. So there might be situations where you will, I suppose, have something in your list that you don't want to change, or you might have something that is always used to execute a particular order and you over-evaluate its ability to do this. In addition to this, something that might cause change, such as, well, if I change my list to have something that everyone's telling me is better or is even statistically better at executing this type of order, but you might estimate that there is such a detriment to change that you make a poor decision and don't include that in your list. Similarly, on the tabletop, you might estimate that something's much better than it is at killing things, and place more weight, and therefore subjectively you choose to do that time and time again, even though statistically it's not the best thing to do. I suppose one of the benefits that we do have from Infinity in particular is that in regards to over and under matching, because weapons across the board are the same, a combi rifle and combined army is a combi rifle and hacker's arm army, we tend to be able to evaluate that better. It gives us the ability to change armies and also have that foot in the door and sort of being able to evaluate and make choices upon that. And similarly, when you're fighting someone, you have that kind of background knowledge to be able to make those decisions. When we're talking about maximising, going back to maximising, when you talk about making those decisions, eventually things become predictable because you're getting better and you're learning about these scenarios. And that means it's great for game players, you're getting better and better and better. However, in terms of game design, it means that things become predictable, repetitive and boring. So essentially you're putting a shelf life on that game. One of the benefits of playing with Infinity is because you have the crit mechanic and have that chance in, you're going to be getting good players, but you'll never be able to 100% I suppose compensate for the game, because there's that element of chance. So unlike chess, I suppose there is probably an exact way to win in each scenario because it's symmetrical. When you're playing Infinity, that element of chance from criticals keep it fresh and keep the game kind of fluid and in motion. Realistically, everyone's decision making should be based upon risk. This isn't necessarily the case, but that's how, I suppose, if you wanted the best choices made, that's how you should do it, by multiplying the reward by the odds of actually doing it. Now, people can fall into two categories of either risk adverse or risk prone. So you're more likely to or less likely to take those risks, regardless of whether you've actually worked out if the rewards will pay off from that odd. We are much more likely to make decisions when playing these tabletop games that have a reliability of actually working than something that's likely to give us a huge reward. So you're more likely to get into a pattern of taking safe choices. However, this isn't always the case, because on the other side of that, sometimes people might make a impulsive decision if the reward is so big but the odds are so few, it might just be worth making that choice. Can my line trooper take out the avatar, for instance, with a critical? But genuinely, you find that people are much more likely, until the reward reaches a certain level, to play safely and to go for the reliable shots as opposed to the high reward ones. So this largely feeds into the decision around kind of immediate gratification. I suppose decisions are kind of made as well of, are you going to get that reward for executing that order immediately, or is it something that's going to impact on the game later down the line? So we're much more likely to go for the immediate gratification. Am I going to take out this key piece of his army and immediately I'm going to see the benefit because he's in loss of lieutenant, as opposed to maybe there's something along the lines of whittling down someone's orders throughout the game, sort of that attrition, so that you win that way. But we tend to go for the big and the now, much like people who are impulsive and rather than save up money, sort of use drugs very, very immediately. That's how we tend to work. So this is very similar to Odysseus's Greek myth around when he met the sirens, and I'm going to read it out just so that you guys know in relation to what I'm referring to with this immediate gratification. So Odysseus knew that his boat was about to sail near the place where the sirens were singing, and that anyone who heard them would throw themselves into the sea in a vain attempt to reach them. Because he wanted to hear the siren but also make it home alive, he ordered his crew to tie him to the mast and plug their ears with beeswax so they would not hear the call. In this way, his ship sails safely past, his crew unhearing of both sirens and his pleas to be untied. Because he made the decisions at a long delay from both outcomes, his choice was a good one. If he'd waited until the sirens were right there and had to choose, his decision would have maximised the short-term happiness of listening to their song over the longer-term reward of making it home alive. So I suppose what it's saying there is that we don't always make choices thinking about the long run. We tend to do it for the immediate now. However, if we think about the future for a higher reward and are quite patient with that, we can often perform much better. Not that we always do. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this short video about the psychology of choice making within tabletop games. I'm hopefully going to carry on this series next, looking at whether tabletop games can be addictive, and let me know what you think.